Okay, I'm sick today, but I wanted to record this video for YouTube for anyone who wants to watch it. This is my video about the topic of influence and letting people influence you when you should listen to your own intuition and your heart and your gut instead of letting other people, interfere with that. Okay, so flashback to a long time ago when I was 14 years old. And I know people are going to be like, why are you doing anything about when you were 14? That's, you're a little kid but honestly, this is a really good, I know many people who are in their adult years who have done the same kind of thing. And it's just a good example of, letting other people influence your decisions instead of doing, what you should do. When I was 14 years old, I was very poor. So I had to get a job. And I was selling newspaper subscriptions door to door. There would be this guy in a van who would pick me up and a bunch of other kids my age, and he would drop us off in random neighborhoods, and we'd have to go door to door with the clipboard asking people to buy the newspaper. And it was really actually quite risky. I mean, we were like children, basically, going door to door trying to get people to buy the newspaper. But anyway, at the end of every shift, we'd have some cash and we'd get taken out for fast food. And it seemed pretty cool at the time, it was something to do. And I had some friends, I made some friends from being on that route or whatever you call it, that shift. So yeah, it was a bunch of 14, 15, and 16-year-olds. I was one of the top salespeople. And then I made friends with these two kids named John and John. And they were awesome. They were nerds like me. We were super nerds back then. We loved comic books, and we had really bad acne, and I had glasses and braces, and they were just, I wish I had pictures to show. But one of the Johns, he was, what people would say not easy on the eyes. He was what you would say obese, and he had really bad teeth, and he didn't take very good care of himself. He didn't really, have much hygiene, I guess you could say. But I really thought, both of them were really cool. They were my buddies. They were my friends. And after a while, we started hanging out. We quit that job, and we got other jobs, and we started hanging out and going to the arcade. And me and the John that, as I described, not very attractive, we became very close, and he was my first boyfriend. He was my first, person that I was romantically involved with. I didn't lose my virginity to him or anything, but, it was definitely a relationship. And I think the first person I ever French kissed. So all the time I had to hear, ew, why are you dating him? He's so ugly. He's so fat. He's so gross. And it really hurt my feelings, and I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. It just kept getting to me that everybody was just so against me dating him. My parents hated him. My brother hated him because he gave my brother a wedgie. And everywhere we go, people would just be looking at him like, ew, and it sucked because he was such a funny person. He had so much charisma. He was really intelligent. I mean, for 14 years, we were going into 15. I think we were 15 a few months later. But he was just so intelligent and just really amazing, so funny. He did all these impressions. He would do an impression of Sloth from the Goonies, and it was just hilarious. It was so great. He'd be like, "Baby Ruth," like everybody would laugh. He was like a joke to everybody. He was just, like an entertainer. But to me, he was really special, and he meant a lot to me. And one of the most awesome things he did, we were really poor, like I mentioned earlier. I finally got this job at the Glendale Galleria, at a game store, super nerd. And I was working there one day, and he just showed up with something that I had wanted for so long that I couldn't afford. It was the creator of The Simpsons, Matt Groening, made this series of book series called Life is Hell. And there's weird little bunnies. I'm sure you guys will know about it if you're into The Simpsons, maybe. And it was like $50 for this book set. And that was like, a lot of money back then. It still is a lot of money right now. and he stole it from me. I mean, I do not support stealing. I don't think it's right at all. You should never steal. I can't even steal a pen, and I think it's terrible, but it was super romantic. It was super, super romantic that this guy, risked getting caught at one of the biggest bookstores at the time. I don't know how he did it, really. And he just he pulled it out of his backpack. He's like, I got this for you. And it warmed my heart because at 15 years old, I had been through so much shit. People stealing from me, trying to beat me up, trying to drown me. And we'll get into that in some other times when I post videos. But I mean, it was so sweet and so romantic. I couldn't believe anyone would do that for me. And it meant so much to me. And I was like, I love this person. And at 15 years old, yeah, I know you don't know much, but it was amazing. But still, every day I'd have to deal with, are you still dating that gross guy? And why are you with him? And after a while, it got to me. I let it get to me, and that was so sad. I let people influence my brain and my heart. And instead of just telling them to shut up and telling them to fuck off, I started listening. I started letting it bother me. And before I knew it, I was pulling away from John. I was pushing him away. I was distancing myself from him. And I started to actually think of him as ugly and gross. And instead of listening to my own gut about how I actually really did feel about him. And eventually I broke up with him. And I'll never forget how sad he looked and how I broke his heart. And I wasn't the kind of person to do that. And I cannot believe I did it. And a few months later, I was with my friends and he was with his friends, and I ran into him on the street. And my friends were like, oh, there's that gross guy you used to date. And I should have been a human being, and I should have defended him, and I should have been nice to him. But instead of that, I was really rude to him. And I said something like, oh, how are you doing? I just was a dick. I don't know because of my peer pressure, And I'll never forget how stupid that was, because that was the last time I saw him alive. A few months later, he killed himself. He did a bunch of acid, this is what I heard, and he threw himself in front of a train. And I know everybody told me, don't blame yourself, it has nothing to do with you, right? Yeah, it probably has nothing to do with me. But you know what? I will never shake the feeling that it actually did have something to do with me. I could have been a good friend. I could have been nice to him. I could have told everyone to fuck off and still just been close with him and done what was the right thing to do. And I know, 15 years old, you don't really have much integrity at that point. You really don't have much, insight on these kind of things. But look, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they do the same thing. I've seen it. They don't listen to their own intuition, and they'll let their friends or their family influence them to make, the wrong decision, or to, I'm just putting this story out there because if you're in a situation like this, listen to your own heart. Listen to yourself. Do not let other people influence you. It did not matter to me that he was overweight or unattractive socially, the social eye. It did not matter to me. I loved that guy. And I should have stayed on his side. But I let everyone else interfere with that. And I have not let that happen since. And I won't ever let that happen again. And thank you for listening to my story. I'm going to have a lot more coming soon when I'm not sick. I'm going to post a lot more of these kind of stories, to share for insight and advice. And thank you. Take care.